Envision being lowered meters underneath the sea's surface, encompassed by the shocking murkiness of strange submerged caves. The strain is serious, the climate threatening, and the risks inconceivable. Agnes Milowka was a courageous cavern pilgrim and specialized jumper. With an amazing achievement of finishing north of 1,100 jumps, she courageously wandered into these profundities, uninformed that her limitless soul would impel her towards an unfathomable fate. Agnes Milowka was brought into the world on December 23, 1980. In Poland at an early age, she moved to Melbourne with her folks, and she immediately went completely gaga over the universe of submerged investigation. Her absolute first submerged experience was in 2002, at Ningaloo Reef in Western Australia, where she left on several preliminary jumps. During these plunges, she had the opportunity to communicate with a great deal of marine life, and it was during that absolute first submerged experience that the idea struck her like lightning. This is how I need to manage my life. Only 14 days after the fact, she signed up for an exhaustive untamed water course, and from that crucial second, plunging turned into the thumping heart of her reality. Her process started with an interest for the dynamic submerged universes of reefs and fish. However, as her enthusiasm developed, so did her inclinations. The charm of wrecks, for their sheer magnificence, as well as for the untold stories and verifiable secrets they held, caught her creative mind. Wrecks held a unique spot in her heart, a first love she would never eradicate from her memory. This interest lighted the second she looked at the left J4 submarine, a disaster area situated in Victorian waters. This experience left her totally captivated and spilling over with energy. This was totally the best. I so maintain that should do more wrecks. Agnes thought back, it was so extremely cool, I can't express sufficient about it. Truly, before long, she developed from an energetic wreck jumper to an oceanic paleontologist, procuring her alumni confirmation in sea paleohistory at Flinders College, driven by a craving to uncover immaculate and perfect wrecks concealed in the chasm. Agnes dug into the universe of profound jumping. It was a domain that requested a dominance of cutting-edge gear and concentrated gases, and the Optima rebreather turned into her confided-in sidekick. On these trying campaigns in 2004, Agnes had her most memorable taste of cavern plunging when she joined a gathering for a swimming outing at lakes in Mount Gambier. This prestigious sinkhole, alluded to as pics, flaunted a flourishing biological system with a variety of oceanic life, including fish, eels, and turtles, nimbly exploring its shallows during one swimming meeting. As Agnes energetically sought after a turtle at the water surface, a startling experience unfurled. Without acknowledging it, she crossed the sinkhole's edge, and unexpectedly the sea floor evaporated underneath her. A monstrous shaft plunged to profundities of 40 meters. Covered in enticing haziness, seeing an individual jumper climb from those significant profundities left Agnes with a steadfast longing. I need to go down there. Unfit to hold back her fervor, she began cave-making a plunge. 2005. From that second forward, her heart was dedicated to the puzzling domain of caverns, both lowered and dry. Her enthusiasm lies in investigating strange sections where no man has gone before. She endured a year drenching herself in Florida's cavern nation, where she got her most memorable taste of laying lines to explore the tangled underground. The excitement of arriving at immaculate domains was inebriating, and she was snared. Agnes' return visits to Florida have seen her laying kilometers of line across different cavern frameworks. Her most huge accomplishment was associating Peacock Spring to Purifying through Water Spring, expanding the framework by north of 2 miles. Notwithstanding her cavern experiences in Florida, Agnes viewed herself as favored to have seen the brilliant magnificence of caverns in different corners of the world, including Australia, Mexico, and the Bahamas. Her process drove her to turn into a vital figure in cave investigation. In Australia, She accomplished the surprising accomplishment of arriving at the back finish of the nation's longest cavern, the Cocklebiddy Cavern, and procured the record for the most profound female cavern make-a-plunge Australian. Cave's Agnes had a remarkable ability that put her aside in the realm of cavern. Plunging her dainty edge permitted her to explore through limitations that were essentially blocked for the typical measured male jumper. This specialization in close limitations turned into her trademark, procuring her a standing as a thrill-seeker in the field in certain occurrences. She even rehearsed a method known as no mounting, where she eliminated her tanks from her side or back, permitting them to drag along her. This unpredictable methodology empowered her to just barely get through increasingly tight limitations, uncovering strange domains that were not open to other people. But rather, Agnes didn't simply investigate, she caught the quintessence of her experiences from the perspective of her camera as a submerged picture taker and videographer. She shared her excursions outwardly with the world. Her enthusiasm for photography and videography consumed brilliantly, and she took huge steps in this field. Her commitment to investigation even drove her to team up with the Public Geographic Group for a venture on the blue openings of the Bahamas, and for the adrenaline searchers out there, Agnes assumed the job of a trick jumper in the 3D cavern plunging highlight movie Sanctum. Coordinated by James Cameron, the film fixates on a gathering of cavern jumpers who are stretched to the edge. When an endeavor turns out badly, Agnes' commitments to buckle plunging were notable. As she wandered where not many thought for even a second to go through her web-based stage, Agnes energetically shared her significant love for jumping, involving her site as a material to paint clear stories of her submerged undertakings. Her charming blog entries offered perusers a brief look into the profundities of her meeting with articles, crossing subjects from the investigation of plane wrecks to the careful specialty of cavern campaigns. Agnes welcomed her crowd to leave on an excursion with her, sharing her mastery as well as her genuine encounters. Through her works, she shared stories of experience, wistfulness, and the tenacious quest for information underneath the waves. Anyway, she didn't avoid examining the difficulties and risks of submerged investigation. Either on Tuesday, December 7, 2010, she shared, "I have had my reasonable portion of issues submerged. For example, controller and bike disappointments a few thousand feet into a cavern suit, and BC expansion issues at profundity. I've been lost, tangled in line, trapped in close places. I've been stung by animals and snacked by moray eels." The rundown continues endlessly, and on she proceeded. With none of these have been what I would consider near disasters. They have been minor knocks along the street, and were sufficiently simple to buy and large purpose. Talking as long as you don't overreact, are good to go, and have had respectable preparation en route. You ought to have the option to deal with the circumstance. I think the examples are very clear. Don't do dumb stuff. When you do moronic things, ultimately, it appears to be your karma will run out. Agnes didn't simply investigate, she exemplified the soul of carrying on with life to the fullest. Agnes once said, "I'm not frightened of kicking the bucket. Anybody, anytime can die, so you need to carry on with your life as though tomorrow could be your last day." I love jumping it. I'm enthusiastic about it, and I figure nothing will prevent me from doing it. Sadly, there takes a chance in each outrageous game. There are threats to me. Those dangers are worth the effort. In light of the fact that the prizes are worth the effort, you need to jump securely. However, live as though consistently will be your keep going. On Tuesday, November 30, 2010, Agnes composed a blog on her site committed to the Tank Cave. She portrayed it as a secret fortune in South Australia's Mount Gambier district, which enthralls cave jumpers with its mind-boggling 20.30 feet labyrinth of entries, procuring its standing as perhaps of Australia's longest cavern. Her words were loaded up with energy as she composed, "Once in a while, cave jumpers stress that Tank Cavern will end up being a gigantic disillusionment after all the quarrel, paving the way to the main plunge. However, Even the gold line plunges, our very thrilling tank cave, is not normal for some other in the Mount Gambier district. It is a genuine diamond, and it is a delight to plunge. The cavern is staggering, and it is moderately shallow with a most extreme profundity around 65 feet. There is no stream to battle, and the water is perfectly clear. You can't turn out badly. Truly, much to her dismay, the deplorable spot of destiny that looked for her an incongruity as significant as the profundities of the very cave she celebrated in her energetic blog entry, for it was in that equivalent tank cave where misfortune would eventually guarantee her life. Only months after the fact, February 27, 2011, began like some other day for Agnes. Her exhilarating excursion had carried her round trip to the tank cave in South Australia, just kilometers from where her interest with plunging started. In Picaninny Lakes in 2004. Joined by a gathering of 10 cavern jumpers, she left on a campaign into the charming profundities of Tank Cave. Her central goal was obvious: to lay new line and try known in the realm of cavern, plunging as stamping a virgin area, wandering into strange waters where nobody had thought for even a second to step before. That morning, Agnes and her plunging accomplice entered the tank cave, anticipating another completely exhilarating experience anyway. Something turned out badly. As they adventure further, they experienced a limited limitation that would turn into the website of the most nerve-wracking snapshots of their lives. On a past excursion to the promising tank cave, Agnes had proactively laid almost 10 feet of line, indicating the huge scope of unseen cavern sections. Anticipating investigations, still Agnes held a dream that one day this cavern would break the otherworldly 33 feet imprint, establishing new standards in the realm of cavern. Plunging Agnes portrayed the tank cave as a cobweb gone wild. The walls and rooftop in the first place are very delicate and soft, which implies that enormous lumps of the rooftop downpour down on you as you breathe out, and the perceivability is immediately diminished to zero. This isn't just a risk while returning out through the little limitations. However, it likewise implies that this segment of the cavern is especially delicate and should be taken care of with a touch of delicate love and care contingent upon your size. It could expect you to take one tank off to go through the underlying limitation right then and there. Individual cavern jumper and that day's managing guide, Andy Higgins, opened the door, prompting the cave and orchestrate the stepping stool for the jumpers to get to the cavern. Over the course of the morning, the jumpers followed a stunned timetable, with one continuously remaining on dry land, close to the cavern entrance, while the others wandered in and out by around early afternoon. 9 out of the 10 jumpers had securely left the cavern, everybody except Agnes. That day, Agnes had an arrangement to leave on one more excursion through an extremely close entry that no other person had at any point wandered through from here. Current realities of the story end, and guess and hypothesis assume control. More than one hypothesis proposes that Agnes isolated from her plunging accomplice to explore this difficult entry. She figured out how to go through the limitation, yet found herself unfit to continue further. Acknowledging she was in an impasse, Agnes endeavored to pivot, yet couldn't switch her body position. Her endeavors to exit in reverse were blocked as the section had become silted out, lessening perceivability to zero. Eventually, Agnes ran out of air and suffocated. One more hypothesis recommends that Agnes wound up isolated from her mate in the primary overflowed section while endeavoring to explore an exceptionally low entry on the opposite side of a little opening known as a limitation. To go through this thin section, she needed to eliminate one of her chambers, leaving it as a save, and continued with a solitary chamber, a procedure alluded to as no mounting. Sadly, upon her return, she became muddled, conceivably because of suspended residue in the water, and couldn't find her course back to the hold chamber. Unfortunately, she ran out of fuel and she suffocated. Unfortunately, her jump accomplice had stood by without complaining for Agnes, yet his minutes transformed into hours. Plainly, something had turned out badly. Agnes had vanished into the twisted dimness of the cavern. At last, her plunge accomplice had no real option except to surface 90 minutes after the plunge started. It was managing guide Higgins who settled on the decision to the water police. The jumper went the entire constantly attempting to find Agnes. Late that evening, they detected her body inside Tank Cave. However, it required a few days for salvage groups to get ready for Agnes' recovery, appropriately solely after jumpers recorded a video way to the limitation behind which Agnes' body lay. Did specialists accept recovery was potential. They picked against penetrating through roughly 50 feet of earth, rather depending on gifted jumpers certain about their capacity to recuperate her functioning 2x2 with a rule from the cavern's entry, and decisively situated crisis tanks along the course. The recovery required an entire day, however continued without issues. Dr. Richard Harris, a dear companion of Agnes, was important for the recovery group, which attempted to make room for police jumpers to pull her body from Tank Cave. Agnes' body was found roughly 16 feet from a hold chamber, which actually held 176 bars of usable gas. The recuperation tasks spread over 4 days and involved various makes: a plunge condition, zero ability to see until the body could be securely separated for handover to the police on Wednesday evening. Harris, who has seen Agnes' body lowered in 65 feet of water, around 1,800 feet from the cavern entrance, says she did not become caught before her demise. It seems as though she has remained extremely quiet right to the absolute final gasp while she has been attempting to remove herself. He says, when you are in an exceptionally restricted piece of a cavern, perceivability goes to zero. Rapidly, right then and there, Agnes achieved her central goal of laying new line in the expressions of Higgins, who had went with her on that significant Sunday. We don't have the foggiest idea how much line she has laid at this point. We realize the line goes further into the cavern. Yet we don't have any idea how far Agnes' striking commitments and getting through heritage have been regarded through the Agnes Milowka Commemoration Natural Science Grant helping oppressed schools in logical fields. Furthermore, in May 2011, she got the post-mortem investigation grant from the Public Speleological Society. Cave jumping segment USA and different geographical highlights were named after her in Australia. Her heritage reaches out to social and science fiction references, including the Collusion Starship, a double U.S. Milowka in Ruby Dull. Agnes Milowka, a genuine trailblazer of cavern plunging and investigation, left a permanent mark on the submerged world. Her steadfast energy, thinking for even a moment, to soul and pivotal accomplishments keep on rousing jumpers and travelers overall, from the profundities of Tank Cavern to the unfamiliar domains of Cockle Biddy. Her inheritance lives on advising us that the human soul exceeds all logical limitations. Agnes Milowka was a legend underneath the waves. Absolutely. If you enjoyed the introduction to Unfit Frame, feel free to hit the like button to show your support. Additionally, don't hesitate to leave a comment sharing your thoughts, suggestions, or any specific topics you'd love to see covered on the channel. Your engagement is valued and helps shape the content to better suit the interests of the Unfit Frame community. Thanks for being a part of the journey.